Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to another Eat Well, Be Well Health Bite. My name is Kohut. I am a soul excavator, among other things, and I am here today with my colleague and friend and very special guest, Dr. Clara Seeger. And Dr. Clara is here with us today. She is a mindfulness, neuroscience, and mental balance coach, and she is our guest speaker, our expert on mindfulness. And what she's going to talk a little bit about today is how mindfulness and cravings go together and how mindfulness can support us when cravings hit, and probably a little bit about mindful eating. But before we get started, excuse me, I'm just going to ask Dr. Clara, let everyone know who you are, a little bit about what you do so that they can better understand why it is that you're our guest speaker today.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me, first of all. I'm really delighted to be here and to explore some of these interesting topics around mindful eating and cravings with you and with our audience. And yeah, so in terms of what I do is I tend to work with professionals who are very successful in their own right, but struggle sometimes with just being okay with where they are, what they are, and I help them tap into a sense of more sustainable well-being without having to achieve more, without having to pursue any more goals, and really develop that sense of sustainable well-being, a well-being that can last, that is not dependent on circumstances. And so I do that by really addressing the root cause underneath that discontent, that dissatisfaction that's still niggling at them. So that's what I do. And I use neuroscience insights and especially mindfulness, meditation practices, ancient wisdom. And I use all that for people to really explore their underlying root causes of their discontent, but also have a methodology of how they can actually cultivate that sense of sustainable well-being. And meditation and mindfulness really come in useful there, because that gives us a way of practicing that rather than just talking about it and having theoretical insights, you know. So that's what I do. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm so excited that you're here because meditation is a huge part of my life. I know it is for a lot of our audience, or some form of mindfulness. Right now in the Eat Well, Be Well program, we're almost at the halfway point, and so we've been together for about 2 weeks. And the group, the participants, are journaling. They're doing a lot of journaling so that they can become more aware of what it is that they're doing, how it is that they're feeling, what it is that their, behaviors, their choices, their habits are, so that they can start to look at the patterns that, have gotten them up until where they are now, so that they can sort of look at, is this something that is supporting me in the way that I want to live my life? Or is this something that is keeping me feeling stuck and holding me back? And if it is, then, okay, what else can I do? So I'm really glad that you're here today, because mindfulness practices and becoming more aware and becoming very conscious of our thoughts, our actions, our choices, our behavior are key to us creating a life experience with intention, with with awareness, consciously, rather than just sort of like going through life by chance, by default, sort of having things seemingly happen to us or around us. So one of the things that we were talking about when I asked you if you would be interested in coming on as a guest speaker is cravings, because this is something that comes up for a lot of people. And no matter how put together you are in other aspects of your life, or no matter how mindful you are about eating, every now and then, more often for some than for others, cravings will come up. And my understanding of cravings, for me, the way that I interpret them, is that they are incredible signals, just sort of have like that are poking at us to say, there's some kind of disconnect, there's some kind of misalignment, there's something that is missing or being overlooked or not being paid attention to. And the craving is sort of like, if you do this right now, it'll give you comfort. But like you were just talking a few minutes ago, there's a root cause underneath that is, manifesting or demonstrating into a symptom that is the craving. So we can like give in, so to speak, to the cravings, but we'll only have, short, limited time of satisfaction or comfort or whatever. And a lot of times the craving that we give into isn't necessarily something that supports us in creating an amazing, vibrant life experience. So it's important to sort of, discover what it is that is at the root of those cravings and how it is that we can then get to the root and give us that tender loving care or attention or whatever it is that we require, so that the craving doesn't happen because we are fulfilled in the way that we need to be. So could you please tell us a bit about cravings and mindfulness and whatever it is that you have for us today to share?
Right. Yes, I agree with everything you said there. So that's really aligned with what I'm thinking about it. What I thought I'd highlight for us here today is how we can work with cravings in the moment, and that really, what really helps me and others that I work with is to look at the nature of cravings. And how they manifest and how they manifest in the moment. And there are really 3 hallmarks of cravings that I want to highlight. I mean, there are more, but these are the ones that I wanted to highlight for us today, and see how that resonates. So the first one is that when a craving arises, our attention, and mindfulness is all about paying attention in a particular way. So our attention is actually on the object, on the thing that we desire, right? So we get carried away with that craving, with that desire for something. And while that's present in our mind, our focus is entirely on that piece of cake or that chocolate or whatever it is that we're craving, right? And that means that we are not with ourselves. We are not with our sensations, our being embodied. We are not present with what's happening in our mind right now, but we are carried away to an object. And so that's the first one. The second one is that in that process, we are actually not in the present moment, but we are carried off to some imaginary future of, oh yes, when I get this, I'll be really happy.
Yeah.
And it's a fantasy, right? And fantasies are not in the present moment. They're kind of about the future, or they could be about the past, in which case they're more memories. So we're not in the present moment. And the third one is that, and I think that's the crucial one, well, they're all important, but this is really important, is that we are exaggerating the pleasure that we will get from satisfying that craving. Ooh. So we're exaggerating the attractiveness of that object of our desire. Ooh, that cake is so delicious. Oh, if only I could just have it. And it's going to be so nice, so delicious, so attractive, right? And in that moment, we are deluded because we think that that object is actually the source of our well-being, the source of our happiness, right? In that moment, we are experiencing a type of delusion. And of course, you'll say, oh, well, of course, I know it's not going to make me happy and forever. And it's, this whole notion of sustainable well-being that I'm very keen on, that I try to flesh out for people and try to help people practice and cultivate. People know, yeah, of course, it's not going to make me happy forever. But in that moment, we do think so. Although we know that it's not, we are deluding ourselves. We are blind in that moment, right? And so we're exaggerating that attractiveness. So what we can do with the practice, the mindfulness practice, is to counteract these three tendencies. So rather than focusing on the object, we come back to the subject, the subjective side, which is the actual desire itself. Because when we are craving something, we're not thinking about the desire, we're not feeling the desire, we're thinking about the object. Right. So we come back to that desire itself. That's the first thing. So that counteracts the first point that I made. The second one is coming back to the present moment rather than being off into fantasy future land, right? We come back to the present moment, and the present moment is that of being here right now, being embodied, having a body, having a mind that's in the present moment, and we can connect with that. And the third one is to really explore that sense of discontent that we have in that moment that we think will be fixed by having that piece of cake or whatever it is. So really working with that sense and exploring it and finding out about it, being curious about it. So this whole practice is really about being curious about the experience in the present moment. Mm-hmm. So rather than analyzing it and having a theory about it, etc., it's really coming back to the present moment experience of having the craving and seeing what we can find out about it and how that might actually change the craving. And I think the results are quite interesting and quite well, I'd like to hear from people what they found doing that and applying that in the moment of craving. So yeah, I'm happy to guide you through it if you'd like to experience that. And
I would love that. And I think that, yeah, everyone who listens in the replay, that, you know, please comment replay so that we know you're listening in the replay. That they will have an opportunity to do this too, maybe not just once, but many times until, you know, we have the opportunity to become more present and to shift the focus from, like you said, the object to the subject, which is something I was just reading about yesterday in the Energy Codes by Dr. Sue Morgan. Right. So this is so neat that we're talking about this today. So yes, please, what is the practice that you have for us?
Okay, so it's not just a mindfulness practice, it's an exploration. So it's a kind of inquiry into the experience and sort of inside practice more than a mindfulness practice. So just make yourself a bit more comfortable. If you want to close your eyes, you can, but you don't have to. Just placing your feet flat on the floor and straightening your spine and allowing your palms, the palms of your hands, to rest on your thighs, and just dropping your awareness into your body for a moment, letting go of the thoughts of our conversation, just really arriving in your body right now, sitting here. And letting your breath flow in and out effortlessly, without any control, without directing it in any way, just letting your body breathe without intervention, without preference, relinquishing all control. And then let's just arouse that craving that we want to work with, just for a moment. Bring back to mind whatever food or drink you might have craved in the past or recently, and let that come alive for you, really bringing it to mind vividly, visualizing it, and letting that craving arise in your mind, in your body. So that it becomes a real experience. So whatever it is, visualize it and recreate that sense of craving, really wanting it, really desiring it, just wanting to have it, and possibly not being able to stop yourself from going for it. So once this is quite vivid, quite present for you, I invite you to now shift your attention, and that's a conscious act of shifting the focus of your attention from that object, from that food or drink, whatever it was, and inverting your awareness back onto that desire, that craving, just that sense of wanting it rather than what you want. Focus on that experience of wanting, of desiring, of craving something. And let's explore that. Can you locate that in your body? Where is that craving that you feel so strongly that you might feel you're at the mercy of? Where is it? Does it have a location? Is it in your tummy? Or is it in your mouth? Can you feel it on your tongue? Is it in your head? Where is it? Where can you feel the craving? Does it have a location? Anywhere in your body? See what comes up. And don't think of the answers in a conceptual way. Don't analyze. Don't resort to theories or what you've read, but really observe in your own direct experience where that craving actually is. Look for it. Look and see what you find. See what you come up with. Just by observing, a bit like a scientist who's looking under the microscope and just observes what he or she sees. What's there to be seen? So where's that craving? Is it in your body? Or is it just a thought? And if it's just a thought, you can decide to let that go for a moment and focus back on your body, looking for it, observing it. Does it have a shape? Does it have a color? Just see what comes up. And if it's a tactile sensation that you can detect, that's occurring somewhere in your body, then let's work with that. Let's explore that. What is that tactile sensation like? Is it like a solid sensation? Kind of pressure or firmness? Or is it a temperature? Does it have a temperature? Like, is it hot or cold or anything like that? Or is it the moisture in your mouth? Is that how the craving manifests? Are you salivating? Or is it some sort of movement, motion? What is it? Can you still feel the craving? Or has it gone? Is it an unchanging, permanent sensation, or does it keep fluctuating? Is Is it in a constant state of flux? Just see what you see without analyzing it, just by observing, like a scientist. And then there's another question. Is this sensation unpleasant from its own side? Like, is it objectively unpleasant, that sense of craving, whatever it is that you've discovered about it? Is it something that really needs to be fixed in some way? Or can you just observe it, how it arises, how it changes, if it does? What can you find out about it? And then another question to explore is this craving really yours? Or is it really you? Is it you? Is there anything about this sensation that indicates that it's your craving, your problem? Or is it just a sensation that's coming up? That's changing, that's fluctuating, and possibly even disappearing? What can you find out about the craving by bringing an attitude of curiosity, of interest, of objectivity, of really being with your direct experience of the craving rather than analyzing it, rather than resorting to theories? And now, whatever you found out, here's the last question. How did the experience of the craving change through the act of observation, through being observed and explored in the way that we did, through these questions, through looking at it carefully? How did that change your experience of the craving? Did it change? Did it become stronger, more intense, or less intense? Did it disappear? What happened to it? So you can release the questions, the effort, any thoughts that have come up. Just coming back to the breath, releasing all the activities of the mind. And just for the last few moments of this practice, just breathing in and out, aware of being aware, without any effort, nothing to accomplish, just being here, aware. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes and return.
Oh, was that ever cool? Okay, so I've done that kind of stuff before, but because it's just the two of us and we're not in the group, I will take the opportunity to just briefly share what I experienced. So for me, it's not so much a particular food that it is sort of my craving. It's this sensation of not being satisfied, of like going foraging for food in the kitchen cupboards and standing open with the fridge and like, what is it that I want and whatever. And it usually happens later at night. So I tuned into that. And then when I, started to explore and sort of feel where it was in my body, for me, I felt it very much in my solar plexus. And then the more I tuned into it, rather than sort of like the object of like, okay, if I find all the things that I want to eat that I feel will satisfy me and like, oh, that's how I'll feel, and turned it on to like the feeling and the desire and the craving itself, it was almost as if I discovered this like blob, this like undulating, pulsating, almost fluid bubble like blob within me that was cool to the touch, that I don't remember any color, um, and was slippery. Like I couldn't grasp it. It was sort of, elusive, and it just like I'd try and it'd go bloop into this like oil or something.
Mm.
And it wasn't beautiful, but it was just intriguing to me. And I just became more and more curious, because the more I sort of sat with it and explored it, the less of a hold, so to speak, it had over me, the less of a call, or, this like impulsion or compulsion, sort of feeling that I had. And it didn't change or shift or get smaller or whatever. But what I realized was my relationship to it changed,
Mm.
and I didn't feel as, by the end of it, I was just like, wow, this is so neat. And like I'm just, wanting to poke it and whatever, and it's just like doing its thing. And so it was still there, but I didn't feel like I was under its control, or that it, was
Mm.
like it was the puppeteer and I was, the puppet kind of thing.
Mm.
And so, yeah, it was so neat. And I felt so calm and just so open and so curious. And I mean, you used the words curious and explore, before we started, but that's really what it felt like for me.
Mm.
It wasn't for me like confronting some kind of evil, sinister demon or force that, had me under its control. It was just like, like, what is this? But what I also found curious was that I couldn't grasp it. Like, no matter how I tried, I could poke it and sort of like affect it, but I couldn't grasp it to like hold on to it. It would just like slip through my fingers and my hands and whatever.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that was kind of neat.
Yeah, very interesting what you're saying, and that you had such a strong notion of what it looked like. That is, yeah, interesting. And yeah, that would be interesting to work with more in more detail, actually, and just to see, is it really there? Is
Yeah.
it, because then you can work with, am I projecting that onto it, or am I really seeing it? You can really, you know, really invite yourself to look at it in more detail and see, is this really something I'm perceiving
Yeah.
mentally? Am I seeing this kind of object, or is this just how I'm conceptualizing it?
Yeah.
That difference between being, having a narrative, having a sort of preconceived idea about it, and actually looking at it. What are you seeing under the microscope of
Yeah.
your mental consciousness, in a way, because that's what we're doing, rather than coming up with a theory or etc. As I was saying, it's really about, so what's coming up, what are you actually directly perceiving, right?
Yeah.
And we can do that with our mind as well,
Yeah.
so we're looking into our body, looking in inverted commas, and looking and to see what is really there to be perceived.
Yeah.
And so you could go further with that and really investigate, am I really seeing that blob? But it's
Yeah.
interesting that you're seeing it like that, but that it was kind of slippery and you can't really grasp it.
Yeah.
Probably because it's not really there in the
Yeah.
end, to be perfectly honest. Because that's often what people find, right? That
Yeah.
they're looking for, where is that craving? And if you're
Yeah.
really looking for it, you might find, well, there might be a bit of a, my stomach might be rumbling, but that's not a craving, right?
Yeah.
That's, how we make sense of it. But it's, if you look at the actual experience of what's there to be noticed, the craving is not actually there as such, right?
Yeah.
That's how we talk about it. So so it's really interesting what you shared. And yeah.
And I mean, for me, it's, having done this kind of work before, and facilitating the group, it just, from it, like the word perception that you just used, that's all, it's all perception. That's what it all is. And so for me, I just really appreciated where, now I could be curious about it and not be attached to it, and not feel emotionally charged, like with it. like I may have 5 or 10 years ago, where it could have even been extremely upsetting, or like could have manifested like in a completely, or been perceived in a completely different way. It was just really neat to just be curious and to explore and to have the opportunity to do that. And I think it's so cool that I was just reading about, object subject yesterday, and that this is part of, what this mindfulness practice is about. Because yeah, sort of projecting our happiness or our fulfillment or our peace of mind, comfort, satiety, whatever, on something else outside of us,
Yeah.
when really, all of that comes from within, as we nurture ourselves and as we cultivate, I love that you use the word sustainability and cultivate, so often when you're speaking, because to me that really, it reminds me of nature. And it just, where things are, they don't just grow, they don't just sort of, it's not a linear kind of thing. And it's not just I don't know quite how to articulate it, where it's just happening on its own, even though it kind of is. But to know that there is cultivation going on, that there's active participation, in this, that we are actively participating in what we are creating as far as quality of life and experience goes for ourselves. And that we can do it at any time in ways that sustain us and nurture us, rather than just like, it worked for right now, but only for a limited time. and then
Yeah.
and that's it. And then you go back to, what you were doing before and how you were behaving before. So I really, really appreciate and value that, and just love the way that you speak about sustainability and cultivation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's really crucial, because that's the whole, in a way, working with eating and cravings illustrates that point about sustainability so well. That's why I talk about sustainable well-being, because you could say, oh, well, I'll be really happy if I have a really nice meal or really satisfy that craving. But how long is it going to last?
Yeah.
Is it sustainable? No, it's not. And every time we kind of are deluded about what something outside can give us, we are perpetuating actually the causes of our discontent, because we continue to nurture that idea that I don't have anything of my own and I just need to raid the fridge to get happiness from there, because I can't do it for myself.
Yeah.
And that, the food is just one example of that. We do that with relationships, we do that with jobs, we do that with, other achievements. And it's always the idea that unless I get that, I can't be happy. So, and the happiness is actually in that object, and that's why I need to get it.
Yeah.
And so as soon as we bring back the attention to the experience itself, then we can start providing that kind of satisfaction from within, and that's why it's a practice. That's why it's a cultivation. It's not just, oh, go inside and you'll be happy, because if you're still with the same sort of mindset and the same habits, etc., mental habits as well as physical habits, then nothing's going to change by going within. You're going to find your own mess inside. But if you're as I can say from my own experience, but that's why I'm so committed to practicing this, because you can practice it in all walks of life and every day. So
yeah. Oh, that's great. You're going to find your own mess inside, and like you'll be stumbling in whatever, and not being able to make sense of it, and wonder, why is it like this? And sort of not even realizing like it's a mess that can be cleaned up or organized, or let go of, or whatever, sort of however you want to continue with the metaphor. So this has been amazing. Thank you so much, Clara. I really, really appreciate you taking some time to spend with us, and to introduce us to this new mindfulness practice, to really sort of address a craving in the moment as it's happening. Or when it's not, like we sort of did just now. But yeah, so in addition to that, if people wanted to get in touch with you or follow you, which I totally encourage everyone to do here, where could they connect with you? Where would they find you?
Okay, I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So Clara Seeger, you can find me there. So that's where I'm most active, but I'm also on Facebook. I have a company page, which is Enlightened Leaders. And I also have a group, Enlightened Leaders group, there. And yeah, so these are the two sort of platforms that I'm most active on. And I also have a free course that people are very welcome to try and to subscribe to. It's a self-paced course, and it's about 75 minutes long, and it's in bite-size chunks. And I introduce a practice there in three. It's an ancient practice, and it's really about bringing ourselves back to a sense of balance. And so I'm unpacking that practice in 3 steps, and give some explanations and some instruction and some food for thought there. So that's that everybody's very welcome to subscribe to that. I can share the link, and we can put it in the details. So yeah, so that's a freebie that people can access.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And I'm excited because we get to have a longer conversation in just a few days when you join Glenn and me on our podcast, Who Do You Think You Are, this coming Saturday, which is the 14th of May. And it'll be happening live on YouTube just after 9 a.m. Pacific. So yeah, really looking forward to that extended conversation and everything that we're going to get into there. So yeah, so thank you very much, Dr. Clara Seeger, mindfulness, neuroscience, and mental balance coach. This has been another Eat Well, Be Well Health Bite. And I encourage whoever's listening, post your questions, comments, observations, whatever it is below, especially if you engage in the mindfulness practice that we went through today. We would love to hear what you have to say, what you're thinking, what you're exploring, what you're curious about. And I know that Dr. Clara will be happy to answer any questions or comments that you might have. So post away and let us know what you think, what you're feeling, what's going on for you. That's it for today. I'm Lasya Kohut, Soul Excavator. This has been another Eat Well, Be Well Health Bite with our guest, Dr. Clara Seeger. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.